What's up, lads? Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on the smallest 1.95 seconds opening 5x5 piston door. Let's just close it. And the opening is syncer than the closing, at least. I mean, this block isn't like synced with any move in particular, but you should just be happy that I got it at all in the size of this top circuit. There's also some air over here as well, which is kind of even funnier. It just so happened that that wasn't very useful in the wiring. So yeah, this is a folded top version of a normal 504 blocks, 1.95 seconds opening 5x5. There have been quite a few of those doors made, but no one's ever folded the top yet, and for good reason, because it's absolute garbage, and I hate it. The closing is really ugly, because there's like no room to toggle any of the pulses. The bottom is layout size, the top is also layout size, because you need to fold the observer extender. And you can see there's some funny business going on up there with the observer. That's why the middle piston is spamming, and we use the fold piston to retract it, which is probably the only saving grace of this entire layout, you know. And we also leached off the side to get some of the pulses for the top. So let's just get started with building the layout. So we're going to need a 9x4x13 area. Yes, I got the dimensions right. So we're going to have a double extender on the bottom. This is just flush with the bottom of the door, so that we have a 3 high bottom and 3 high top, 4 blocks deep. Get some side pistons. Oops. I'll just build the rest of the bottom layout. We're going to store 4 blocks in the bottom. Oops. So the design of this door was done over a little bit of a process. I've attempted to make this a few times, but I was never able to finish it until I came back to doing redstone a little while ago. This was probably like one of the first doors that I made when I, came back to the game. And I thought it was pretty nice. I made an input delay version first, and then made this one. I was like, no, I don't think removing the input delay is possible, but then it was. It was definitely difficult, and the outcome was a little ugly, but overall it was pretty good, all things considered. So we're gonna take out those pistons for a second, a folded observer double right there. And then this block has to be solid, and then just the other observer extender like that. That's it for the layout. So we're going to be making the top circuit first, and then we'll be making the bottom circuit second. So our input is going to be up here in the corner. And we're going to focus mostly on the opening moves. I'm just going to fill in the ceiling here because a lot of it is used for the wiring. So the first thing we're going to get is the instant extension, because it's also used during the closing circuit, which is pretty nice. This is right here. Actually, I forgot this block has to be an obsidian for later, and it's because of this piston right there. And then we need an observer facing this way to place a repeater on. A block here, a hopper. This circuit is from the normal layout. Usually, you can still use this circuit, except it's actually applicable here as well because we have the closing circuit, which needs the same thing. Well, sort of. Well, I need the first pulse at least. I'm looking for slabs. I don't know why I'm looking here exactly. No, not quite. I thought that was it. Okay, I'm just searching it up. Let's go. Anyways, this line here, we're obviously going to need an updater piston, so that one will be right here. That space is not really that useful for anything. Well, it would be for the 3-tick pulse, the long pulse, but we get that differently. I get that in the most stupid manner ever. So right here, basically, since this is a 1-tick repeater, it doesn't matter about input bug. It's just going to be either a 2-game tick pulse or a 1-game tick pulse. So that's what's going to happen. You can see that happens on the actual door as well. And then the next step is we need to insert the pistons right there. So how we're going to do that is with a slider. And the slider is going to have a sticky piston just for funsies. It's actually has an interesting purpose. So basically, whenever this thing, well, basically you can't power this thing when the observer's there. So if you just had a normal piston, it would power all 3 of these pistons and the thing would break. And in order to stop that from happening, we're going to have a normal piston right here, and then 2 observers like that. So basically, whenever you pull back this thing, we're just going to like use it and break the whole door. You can see the observer does like a 0 tick pulse with no block event delay, so like nothing happens. You can see it just pulls it and then spits it again, and these pistons never actually power. And then you can just push this back over to get the slider on the other edge, and that's kind of the whole purpose of this sticky piston right there. So that will insert the pistons on the closing. And then all that's left to do is just spam the inputs a couple more times, and then the door will be closed. And we also have to prepare this thing for, you know, the opening. And that kind of is done by like the same circuit. So let's just get that right now, I suppose. So the first thing we're going to be doing, because we already have like the instant extension, right? So if we close it, you can see we have all of these in here. I'm just going to leave these blocks out because you don't need them. You do need this block. It has to be solid though. You see we have the instant extension already. And so then obviously we're just going to pretend that the sides are like open, right? And the first pulse for this one is going to be right here. So we need to power these at 3 ticks and then at 6 ticks, because if you powered it like 2 ticks apart, you would get issues with these observers powering between the blocks right here. Fortunately, you can power these ones 2 ticks apart instead of 3, because obviously the observer is not powering anything when you pull it back up. Actually, it'll be pulled up to like here, but the block will be missing, you know. So how we're going to get that one is just having an activator rail here, and then break that and putting that there. Fortunately, this doesn't affect anything because this piston is going to be doing its long pulse when this thing starts retracting. And since this is from an observer and this is also from an observer, the start of the long pulse will actually come from like down here, and it will be at 4 ticks, so it won't actually affect this thing at all. Bro, there's the slab. That slab has probably single-handedly cost me about like 10 seconds of this video, which is kind of insane. So how we're going to be getting this piston right here is, well, first off, we're going to have this observer in order to help us unfold the thing. And then second, we're going to be having a normal piston right here. And this is going to be powered by this observer right here through this block. And this is how we achieve the 3 game ticks timing. And that, you might be thinking that that will like break because this thing like is getting powered, but fortunately this thing powers at 2. And then when this thing powers at 3, the thing like happens, and also it's not even like pointed into the right piston, I just realized, but that doesn't interfere with the closing sequence at all. And then to actually close the thing, we need basically this right here. And what this does is this is basically this like the observer behind here, right? And then this is 2 more observers, and this powers it at 5. And that the first pulse down here gets like blocked, and then the one at 5 just pushes this out right here, and then this observer will cause this thing to go in. And you can see that happening right now. Okay, that thing like got completely busted because I didn't have an immovable down here. Just gonna grab an obsidian, place it here for later. And on this side, we're just gonna have an obsidian down here, and then a glass right here. It has to be non-solid, and that's why it's a glass. So let's just reset that, I guess. So let's just move these blocks out. So we should get most of our extension. You can see the observers all worked, but we never actually got to like update this thing. Oh, that one wasn't built in yet, actually, so I don't know what I'm saying. And then it's for this part, it's as simple as pulling this back over, and then for the observer retraction, we have to retract it manually. But fortunately, when we push this slider back over to grab these pistons, you can see that it powers this normal piston as well through this block right here. And you can see it automatically makes that piston pull up, which is really huge. So that side does a whole lot of the door already. So now to get the long pulse, we're just gonna do some observer spam. So actually it's at 5, not at 4. I don't know what I was saying. But yeah, right here, these ones right here, activator rail. Make sure you turn it the right way, of course. And then observer here, and that kind of going to be chaining off of this right here and going all the way through. So that's on at 5, off at 6, this is on at 6, off at 7. And then we have to have this side, which is going to be getting the rest of this thing. It's going to have an observer right here and then a piston. And we'll be getting one more observer pulse to extend it from 1 ticks to 2 ticks to 3 ticks right here. And so let's just start on this side of the door. Alright, to get our signal over to the other side, we're going to be using a piston with a glass block on it. You might have noticed that my inventory has like changed around completely, and that's because there's a giant cut here, and that's because I messed up on this side and got like hella confused. So I'll have to be putting in some clips in the bloopers at the end of this video, so you can see what happened there. But anyhow, this piston is going to be leading into this piston with a solid block on it. This one can be glass or whatever, but this one has to be solid because we're going to be using it as a toggle. And this whole thing, like when you close it, this block like pulls back, but then it pushes when it opens. That's so we can get less delay on the opening. The closing doesn't really matter, but you can see we need to have the right amount of delay on the opening to have this redstone lamp to be able to control this piston right here with the right timings. So it's on at 3 and then on at 6 ticks. I have a dust right here and then a rail. Make sure you turn that one the right way as well. And 2 observers into this dust right here. This rail is going to be getting a pulse from the side right here at 8 ticks, so we're just going to simulate that by placing a piston right here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8 right here, so we're going to use a no block. And that simulates the side pulse. And this thing is going to be toggled by this. You can see when it on the closing doesn't do anything, but on the opening it'll go through. And the second pulse right there, so it'll be powered at, this dust will be powered at 4 ticks and then 10 ticks. And then we're going to have 2 1-tick repeaters out through here, which is a huge waste of space, it seems like, but I didn't need the space, so it's whatever. This piston's going to be attached to a glass block with that's going to be spat out from the piston like this. And so when this thing gets 2 pulses, it's going to put it here and then put it there. And what this whole thing is going to be doing is doing the pulse back up from whenever this in the ceiling grabs like this. We need a double pulse right here to retract these pistons. So this will like retract with the long pulse, and the thing is this thing is on from 7 until 8, which completely pairs well with these 2 observers, which do the long pulse. And then we're just going to do like a short pulse after that. And that's going to get these ones. Then after that, I'm just going to lay out the pistons right here as they are as we build the pulses. So that's going to be doing this. And then we're going to be getting a double pulse from this piston like that, which seems really sketchy, especially because we don't even need to redirect this dust. It just kind of doesn't update this at the right time because it hardly gets any updates except for when it gets powered, which is kind of nice. So I'm going to get a double pulse right here. And then from the sides, we're going to get another pulse to this module right here. And since this glass block is going to be spat out, we only get 1 pulse to here. These pistons are going to be folded, and then the second double pulse from here is going to be doing a double pulse to grab these back up. And so to get the fold, first, well, we already know that the fold is going to be in the position like this, right? And there's not really any easy way to like unfold it. So we're just going to be doing a double toggle right here. So this piston is going to be getting 2 pulses per edge of the door, which means this is going to be getting 1 pulse per edge of the door. And so on the closing, this will grab down and then it'll push back up at 8 ticks. And so this will grab over at 8. And I'm going to have a piston there that gets butted from this block that gets powered, right? And then we're going to have 3 observers like this, which will go into this. And this already gets powered at 11 from the first double pulse, because this thing gets powered at 6, and then a double pulse starts at 9, so it's on at 9 and then on at 11, and this is also on at 11, so it kind of like melds with this pulse and does nothing, which is pretty nice. And then, so these grab up like this, and to push this back over at the right time, this will be pushed over at 11, these will grab at 14 ticks, which is useful because these pistons get pulsed last at 11 from the double pulse right here, right? And then these pistons will grab them off at 14, which is the earliest you can grab them because they'll be off at 12, and then they'll be done retracting by 13.5 ticks. So you fold them like this, and then the next pulse from here starts later because this piston powers at 12, and then this goes through and powers these at 15. So these will be out of the way at the right time. And then you get a double pulse, and then it just folds this, and then this piston gets powered by this slider going back, and then it powers this piston right here to grab the block. So that was a lot of words, but let's see this door actually working. That should be everything. So it spams on the closing. Just grab these. I think this does the funny. Yeah, this thing like powers again. I forgot where it actually gets powered from, but it just kind of breaks that one column until it, because like these sides will pull back, you know, and then this will block that thing. I think it's from, I have no idea, yo. What? How does this thing get powered again? Oh, it's this block. It gets butted from that block. That's unfortunate. Well, regardless, let's just start on the bottom now. We can remove this temporary wiring. So what we're going to have here is a normal piston with a slider. I believe we'll have, oh sorry, no, one facing this way, and then two more facing this way. That's going to be our slider. So let's grab some hoppers and some normal blocks. So these two have to be hoppers because we don't want these to like get pushed out when we're using the storage. I tried to make it non-block swapping, but unfortunately it's just kind of like you can't in this size because like it just doesn't work out. I might be able to do it at some point, like if I really tried, but I don't really care nearly enough at the moment to get it done. I'll give it another try sometime later though. I'm not going to upload a second tutorial of the door though, so you have to stay with the block swapping version unless I get at least 10 comments telling me to upload the non-block swapping version. So that's the incentive to comment right now. So that's going to do the first pulse to this thing, and this thing needs like 3 pulses, right? Oh, and then another part of this like funny cycle is we need to power this input. So I'll just grab 3 blocks like that. Oops. And this. If we power this thing like 3 times, we just get like 3 pulses to this for like the closing and the opening, and the last one will be used for the double. And so we need to power this thing instantly, well after 3 ticks, and then after 5 ticks, and then after 6, because that would like even out with the timing for the top. So we're going to have a 1 tick repeater right here, and then a piston right there that powers this. This has to be on 2 because I can't do any simple addition, which is kind of embarrassing, but it is what it is. And then to push this thing back, we're going to go down out of this observer, and then 2 observers this way, then 2 observers this way, and that's 6 ticks later, because this takes 2 ticks to push up. And now we have to power these 2 blocks right here, because they power both these pistons and the ones up here, and that's a really simple timing to get, so we'll just use a hopper right here, and then 2 observers facing into this block, and then 2 observers facing into that block from here. That's most of it. Now the only things we have to power manually are these back pistons right there. I'm going to power them once after the first cycle of these pistons has been completed. So that timing looks like this, and I just broke the entire door, but I'll fix it, don't worry. And then for this side, we're going to be using another slider, because there's no way to like isolate one single signal on this side. There's not enough room. And this is going to be going into a block, into a hopper, and into 2 observers like that. Wait, no, observer and block. And then we'll also add a block right here. And then 3 rails like so. I'm just going to push this back over because it's like easier. And that gets the timing for this side. And to push it back, we're just going to have a 3-tick repeater on this observer right here. And that actually blocks the last pulse from here. And now that should be it for that. Then on the sides, we're going to have 2 observers like this, an observer and a block. Then on this side, we have to match the timing of 3 ticks, so just a repeater and then 2 observers into this dust right here. And now we just need the double extender and this side. So for this side, we're going to have 2 observers like that, an observer up, and then a dust right here. And that also powers this rail. Now for the double extender, we're going to have a slider. I believe it actually starts here, otherwise it would power this piston, which is very bad. The reason why powering that piston is bad is because it would, like, you know, break the entire door. It's also kind of difficult because you can't update them at the wrong times either, because what we're using for the bottom, so we don't have to like toggle this, because you realize that we have to give like these things like different amounts of pulses. This thing has to go like 3 times, this thing only twice, and then this thing once on the opening. Otherwise they would like push around the blocks because we don't have immovables. And so what we're using is just the normal, like this thing will still be retracting when this thing starts getting powered. And so if you update it at the exact wrong time, what will happen is this thing will realize that it's being powered while it's being powered and then push up with a 1 game tick pulse. That should not be an observer, so we can stop that from happening. Instead of glass block, it can be anything. And then we're going to have our 0 tick slider like this. And just place back this thing that we broke. Fortunately, this thing doesn't interrupt the 0 tick slider, which is nice. So then we have to take an output from the 3rd piston up on this wall here, and then observer spam like this. Spam a few more observers, make sure that block is solid, and then spam down here. This is a double pulse, but it doesn't matter because by the time the second pulse happens, this piston will pulse once like instantly, and then if you double pulse it, since it takes 2 game ticks to extend and 3 game ticks to retract, it will end up pulsing at 5 game ticks, and this thing powers back at 4 game ticks. So that gets blocked sufficiently. And that should be our entire door done. Let's give it a test. Closes. And opening's in sync. So let's just fill in our door frame. Door frame speedrun world record, let's go. So yeah, that's the entire door. I hope some of you found this interesting. If you have any questions, leave them below in the comments. I read every single one of the comments, because I don't get very many of them. Thanks for watching.